Let's head over to Austin, Texas, where these blonde kids are taking a gander at some math mainly because their lives depend on it. The boy named Simon says he can't memorize this by tomorrow because his brain's a little smooth. So he's asking this girl, Lena Michaels, for some sort of cheating tool. He gives her some dough and she forks over her last stock. Whatever it is, it'll probably help Simon cheese that test.
That was my last one.
Then someone calls Lena. It's Dr. Perkish. The doc here says her mom's gone a bit loony and wants to get out of the hospital, so she's asking him to stall her, while Simon puts on what Lena gave him. It's some high-tech contact lenses that can solve equations at a glance. Awesome. Then Lena heads out.
Okay guys, time to go.
Rise and shine, boys. It's thinning day. We're taken to a common American school filled with guards and guns and fences all around, maybe that's a normal thing nowadays, I don't know. We see Simon among the crowd of reprobates and one bump, and he loses his high-tech contact lenses. Pretty cheap if they just fall like that. And he's asked to move along by the guard, so he's in bitter defeat.
Move along.
You can see family members saying goodbye to their sons and daughters. Then some guards are really scanning people's belongings strictly. Soon, Blake approaches Lena, asking to buy a study guide, but Lena's dry of stock. Soon, Kellen Woods catches up with Lena, and he thinks she and Blake are an item, but Lena says he doesn't even know her name. Moments later, a guard scans one of the dudes coming in and he finds a cheat sheet on his arm. The kid makes it for the gates.
All units converge to the south gate.
Then Kellen hacks into his dad's account via the phone. Apparently, his dad has access to the security cameras around the school and watches that kid get chased down and get netted like a boar. Kellen says he passes some of this footage to an Aussie news anchor, but she has yet to reply. School starts, and Blake tearfully reunites with his main gal, Ellie. He reassures her that she has this in the bag, but I'm gonna go ahead and say she's gonna get game ended.
You can do this.
A few guards outside gather, and they commence the school lockdown. The intercom announces this, and testing's about to begin in 15 minutes. Everyone's in their respective classes being talked to with pure wholesomeness. Nah, not really. Teachers are probably glad they're not the ones about to be cut down like cattle. Let's review. There's only 2 hours for the test. No talking, look at your own bootleg iPad, and this is an accurate test to see if you're smart or an idiot. The test begins and everyone grabs their tablets. As the lights are dimmed out, everyone goes pretty quiet, cause they're busy answering the thing that'll determine if they're promoted to a coffin or not. Much later, time's up, tablets down, and test is over. Everybody looking stoned and dredged. Then the teachers announce the results. Blake holds Ellie's hand for good luck, and names are now mentioned. The first few come quietly, but the next one gets a bit loud. Some are in denial and try to run, but they're whacked relentlessly.
No.
There's this one girl that cries, and then lo and behold, Ellie's name's announced. She's in pure disbelief, and so is Blake. The remainder, congrats for surviving this epic victory royale. At Dean's office, someone's on the line. It's his son Blake. He says Ellie's gonna get slaughtered like a pig for hot dogs, so he's begging his dad to do something about it since he's the governor. But he says it's out of his hands because it's the law.
Dad? Son, we all have to obey the law.
Blake smashes the lockers and zooms off. Ellie and the others, including Simon the Klutz, are being herded to their graves by guards. But then Blake shows up with breakneck speeds and kicks the guard's tuchus. Soon he beats up another guard, letting Ellie run, but she's blocked off by the crowd. Soon the guards catch up. They restrain Maverick while Ellie gets hauled to turn into a pack of delicious salami.
Let him go! No, let him go!
Fast forward to 1 year, and we're at a football field where some fat boomers watch jocks pass around the pigskin. In a house somewhere else, this girl gets frustrated with studying, and then she dolls up to visit Mr. Glass here. Let's go to Lena's house, where she's busy supervising the children's studies, and then a ring at the doorbell. It's that teacher, who looks like she actually gives one to her students. She's here to give some casserole and reassurance to Lena, since it looks like her mother didn't make it, but she says she's good. Back at the Low Gang house, Blake is busy working out. Too bad one of the teachers catches this little tryst. Seems like he's still worked up about Ellie being turned into a burger, so he records a video for post-mortem.
If you're watching this video, then I'm no longer alive.
3 hours before the thinning, Lena tests her little sister, Corinne Michaels. While walking to the barbed wire fences of the school, she seems to be ready for the exam, so Lena lets her go. Back at the Redding residence, it seems that Dean has a busy day ahead of him, but he goes to check on his son. Of course, after the culling of his girlfriend, Blake replies dryly, and Dean says none of them are above the law. Blake responds that line would be a bestseller in his speech today, and then he leaves. Outside, Blake mails what looks to be a video he recorded earlier, but one of the security sees him do this. At school, Kellen and Lena meet up for the last thinning. Kellen makes a joke or two for Lena's entertainment, then this muppet, Wade Freeman, the tool of a quarterback, bullies some people for show. The guards don't seem to give one, and they initiate the lockdown once again.
Commence lockdown sequence.
The gates begin to come down and the school gets dark. Back at Dean's crib, one of the security tailing Blake got that video package and wants him to have a look at it. Class begins in session, and for the younger grades, they're shown this cute little video on how the planet got less land thanks to global warming, and that the population's rising, so some people thought of a cool idea, a violent mass culling. Of course, this video kind of rattles Miss Cole over here, and she tells the guard that she's fine, but really she's not. The video in the room continues to educate these kids about the thinning, and that only America does this brutal testing practice to become the best country again. After the video, the children clap for some reason. Miss Cole comes back to the room and readies everyone for their test. In the higher grades, the teacher also prepares the students for the test. She gives them the green light, and it's thinning time. Meanwhile, Dean's gravely watching the video Blake made, and he says he's gonna flunk the test on purpose so that his dad has to watch his son get eaten alive by this horrid system. He wants Blake home now. But like he said, the law's the law. One of the guards gives him a phone.
Sir, they're ready for you.
And then we see Blake flunking the test, on the road to become another body in the forest for some Eggheads vlog. Somewhere in the security room, we see this bootleg John Wick named Mason King being called by someone. Blake and Lena finish the test. In the lower grade, one of the kids is already having trouble with the test, but Miss Cole isn't really allowed to help.
Sorry, I can't.
Tablets down, people. Test is over. And Mason here does something with the numbers. Oh boy, it's announcement time. The kids take it well, mainly because they don't know what's on the other end. But the higher batches get rowdy. Sarah Foster, the girl who solicited woohoos for a passing mark, fails. Looks like Blake passed. On the other end, Lena flunked. Looked like Dean did some shady business with Mason to switch Blake and Lena's answers. That's why they got the opposite of what they were expecting. He approves the thinning. Then it's time for his political dribble.
Are we approved to commence the thinning?
You are approved.
Back at school, the cattle are herded once again, but the teacher from earlier, Kendra Birch, pleads for reconsideration of Lena's thinning because she's the best she's handled. The guard calls control and says there's no mistake, so off to the chopping block for her. Before that, Kendra sneakily hands Lena something, then they're off.
There's always a chance.
In another room in school, the survivors are partying it up. Blake then gets held up by Frank Halloran, and he offers Blake something about his future, but he just ignores him. And while this is going on, one of the security team members scope out Kellen. Kendra arrives at the party, finding Mr. Glass seducing another student. Let's go to another loud, crowded gathering, where Governor Dean Redding gives a survivorship-biased look on how Texas is #1 in education. Taking a closer look at the cattle for the thinning, the guards are very strict. Blake is seen watching the news, then goes out of the room to probably do something stupid again. The cattle of the thinning are asked to strip forcibly for decontamination, while Dean tries to justify the thinning with some amazing mental gymnastics. The cattle are decontaminated, and then they're asked to dress up in uniforms, somewhere in the hallways leading to the thinning. Blake's acting like he has a sickness, so the guard falls for it, and Blake beats the stuffing out of him. Kellen once again tampers with the security feed and finds the cattle all dressed up in prison uniforms. In the control room, Mason goes out, and Blake sees the chance to get in. Soon the cattle are strapped in for the thinning, while Blake has to find a way to shut down the system. Dean declares his candidacy for president, while poor cattle are about to taste a lethal injection. Luckily, all of the school's power lines are conveniently ripped out by Blake. Mason sees a guard knocked out in the bathroom, then the backup power goes online. While the surge is happening, the cattle fight their way out of the thinning, and only Lena escapes with the help of that doohickey Kendra gave her. Blake's hiding at the vents, only to see and hear Mason ordering to get the power back on. Lena sneaks through the corridors. Then this nerd named Victor Woods is called back to the control room. The guards then try to quell the party from going south. At the thinning room, Mason arrives to check on the fresh meat, and he wants a head count.
Have you done a head count?
Victor then reports that the power should be back in 30 minutes. Meanwhile, Lena was about to escape through this door, but it's locked, despite using the fake fingerprint scanner. A guard catches her, so she pretends to be a teacher despite her outfit. Then she takes this opportunity to wrestle her. Good thing Blake the Maverick's there to rescue. Mason then finds out Lena escaped. Meanwhile, Blake and Lena talk about how their results aren't right, and then they attempt to breach the door, but the security system catches them at level 4.
Level 4 breach.
so vents it is. Mason gets a report about complaining parents, but no one leaves the building until this breach is cleared.
We're still in lockdown until this is done.
Blake then asks where to go, so Lena asks to get the test answers. Blake then accuses her of profiting off of those who have fallen. Lena says she did it to fund her mom's treatment. Blake admits his fault and apologizes. Then Lena confesses with insurmountably great timing. Well, she says it's all in the past, so Lena opts to follow the cables, which might lead to the server room. Blake says that they might need an access card, but Lena's doohickey from earlier has it covered.
Access card? Come on.
At the set for an interview, Dean prepares for his lovely close-up shot. Then Mason has everyone gathered in a red room. Vince, the interviewer, starts the show with Dean. Then he breaks the news that the school is still on lockdown, so the parents are growing more and more concerned. Dean responds to this like any other ratty politician and says that the situation is under control. After the interview, Dean wants to know what's going on at his son's high school, so he watches the news to get up to speed, then asks for Mason on the emergency line. Mason, on the other hand, is just about to check Kendra for her access card and ID, but the governor calls him just in time. In the vents, Blake and Lena were just crawling. Blake suddenly falls through the vents and falls into the school's pool. Despite his muscle mass, this knocks him out for some reason, so Lena has to save the day. Dean's totally angry he's got a load of parents complaining, but Mason says the power's almost back on. Dean emphasizes that there should be zero room for failure. Then Mason spills that one of the cattle escaped the thinning. Speaking of escaped cattle, here she is trying to resuscitate Blake for that sweet fan service. Blake gets dried up. Then some more blatant eye candy. They change their outfits and they find a new dirty vent to crawl into.
I'm going to go through here.
At the supposed party, the students are getting riled up. I mean, they just dodged the abyss stressfully. I don't blame them if they just want to go home. Sadly, the guards remain vigilant. One of them pulls that bratty kid move, "Do you know who my parents are?" and forces to leave, but he gets blunt force trauma instead. Kellen's seen recording this. Lena and Blake are back to crawling vents, and Lena makes the idiotic mistake of putting the access card in the most loose jacket pocket. This makes it drop from the vents into the hall with some guards patrolling, of course, and the guards hear the fall. And Blake recoils Lena back, and the guards find nothing. Lena needs to get that card back, because they need it for that server room. So they go another way, and loudly rip out a metal vent. The two of them get supplies to make a makeshift magnetic hook, but then a guard tries to come into the locked room. Blake hoists Lena up, and she goes ahead.
Go, go, go.
While Blake plays hide and seek with the guard that managed to come in. He's about to thump him, but the guard gets the beat on him first. Lena scales back to where she dropped the access card and slowly tries to finish it out without alerting the guards. Back at the room, it seems like the guard won against Blake. This is wrong, however, because while Lena's fishing out the access card, a guard grabs it in midair. Turns out, it's your boy Blake. He's instructing Lena to take care of things while he heads for the thinning.
You take care of that. I'm going to the thinning.
Lena successfully retrieves the card. In the Redding's house, Dean arrives at home and tells his subordinates that the press is swimming all over this school's lockdown. At the same time, Mason finds a guard beaten by Blake and Lena. Then he's asking the guard which teacher was the student impersonating. Well, we all know it was Kendra, who right now is trying to get handsy with Mr. Glass in an attempt to steal his ID. And while that's happening, Lena arrives through the floor, and it's the server room. Tons of drives are seen everywhere, and she finds a computer to access it all. Too bad it needs a password, but she figures out Kellen might be watching, tries to message him, but he's offline. Back at the Red Room, Kendra's questioned again instantly by bootleg Johnny Silverhand, but she comes prepared. Mr. Glass is then asked for his keycard and ID, but he's the one caught empty-handed. Mason asks everyone else to leave, and then he interrogates him with some pretty weak punches. Soon Mason pulls out the baton and asks for Lena. Victor, on the other hand, successfully restored the power to the school. Kellen then immediately sees the message sent by Lena, and he provides her with footage of Mason typing. She mimics his typing and she's in. Lena looks up to her younger sister if she passed, but she also sees the weird scores interchanged between her and Blake. Quick, change it to pass on your end and then give Wade Freeman the fail. Too late for that, as Dean reports on the news that she's a wanted fugitive, falsely accusing her of crimes. Blake catches the news as well.
I love you, son.
Then Kellen's incriminating footage of the guard beating up a passing student makes waves to that news reporter he was talking about. The footage leaks to the news, but then Mason sees Lena in the server room. Blake arrives at the thinning room to try and free the students while maintaining his disguise, but the guards don't want to do anything until Mason King says so. So he beats up the guards even though he's outnumbered. Somewhere else, Lena gets caught and claims to pass, but Mason orders her thinning. Luckily, Lena already sent a screenshot of the scoreboard for the thinning to Kellen, while Blake gets beaten stiff by the guards. Lena once again is escorted to the thinning, where she meets Blake restrained. Kellen's reporter, Wendy Banks, breaks the news of the falsified test scores.
Possibly to favor or target specific students.
Dean seems to be driven to a corner, but he says he has one last trick up his sleeve. Mason calls him for the thinning approval, but Dean instead asks to revise the list of cattle. The batch goes free, while Lena and Dean smooch, but Blake is taken away. In the recreation room, some are picked at random for the thinning. Even Wade's in it, so it's all good. Blake gets his injection. Then the school is freed from lockdown. Lena reunites with her sister, and Wendy breaks the news that Mason is taken in. Looks like Dean threw him under the bus. Dean then throws his own son under the bus, telling people that his son was also a part of the thinning and he was game-ended. See? Dirty little liar. Because everyone in the thinning are taken to sweatshops where they make iPads forever, including Ellie. Tablets down. Because that's it for the thinning. What'd you think about this mass culling movie? Let us know in the comments below using that hashtag #CinemaRecap. This was The Thinning by legendary Digital Media, starring Logan Paul, Peyton List, and Michael Trainer. Until that next exam, farewell.